Good afternoon, students. Welcome to the live lecture of functional analysis. In the last lecture, we have seen an important notion of Rees lemma and Rees theorem. Rees lemma is a statement used for proving the Rees theorem. In the Rees theorem, we were going to actually prove that if any nonlinear space, if we have closed and bounded set is compact, then the corresponding nonlinear space is a finite dimensional. To prove this, we have proved a Rees lemma. The Rees lemma says that for any y to be a proper closed subspace of a nonlinear space, then for every epsilon lying between 0 to 1, there exists a point x naught in x such that norm x naught is 1. Norm x naught is 1 means this vector given to be a unit vector, and distance of this vector from any point of the subspace y is greater than by epsilon. This is what a sketch I have drawn in order to understand, and we have seen the proof in detail. Okay, and then this is the theorem we have seen. For x to be a nonlinear space, the closed and bounded, that is closed unit sphere, is compact. We know this closed unit sphere is always closed and bounded. Therefore, if this closed and bounded set is compact, then we wanted to prove that x is of finite dimensional. If the another statement is if closed and bounded set in a nonlinear space is compact, then prove that it is finite dimensional. The proof of this theorem we have given by using a important theorem that we have seen already in our BSc level, that the subset of a given set is compact if and only every sequence in the subset has a convergent subsequence. Now here S is given to be compact means every sequence in S must have a convergent subsequence. To prove the space to be finite dimensional, we have started with the contradictory assumption that X is not finite dimensional. For this, one point x1 in S will be taken and a space n1 is spanned by x1 will be moved out a subspace of X, right? Then it will be by the Rees lemma, it will give us a vector x2 in X such that norm x2 is equal to 1 and norm of x2 minus x1 greater than epsilon if sound is particularly taken to be half C. Right? Norm x2 is equal to 1 means this x2 will be a member of the unit sphere S. Right now, therefore we have obtained an element x2 in S such that norm of x2 minus x1 is greater than half. Then n2 is another proper subspace of X we have found by generated with two vectors x1 and x2. Again, this will give us a vector x3 in S such that this condition satisfies. And if we proceed in the same manner, we were getting the sequence xn of elements in S such that norm of xn minus xn is greater than half. Now, if we look at this statement, if norm xn minus xn is greater than half, whether we were getting this to be a convergent subsequence? Whether we were getting this to be convergent? No, because we want this to be less than epsilon. So for this sequence of points has no convergent subsequence, which will be a contradiction. Hence, this proves that X is a finite dimension. Now, in today's lecture, we are going for an important fact of functional. Actually, the name of our paper is functional analysis. Till now, we have not seen what is functional. Now, in today's lecture, we were going to see the definition of a functional, as well as we were going for an important theorem called as Hahn-Banach lemma, where this Hahn-Banach lemma gives us the existence of functional on the given nonlinear space. Again, before proving Hahn-Banach theorem, we have to go for one lemma, which will be useful for proving the theorem itself. So first, we will start in today's lecture with the definition of a functional. Okay. Now the word functional actually tells that this is one kind of a function having some certain properties. Therefore, functional is actually defined to be a continuous linear map having scalar value. Right? So here let me write the definition. A continuous linear map. Yeah, defined on any nonlinear space n to either R or C. See what I am writing? This is my arbitrary nonlinear space and these are the scalar field. Correct? No? If the domain is either R or C, means the function whatever under the consideration is either real valued function or complex valued function. That is scalar valued, I am saying. Okay? is called functional. Is called functional. What is the definition of a functional actually? Simply continuous linear map having scalar value. Correct, no? Where n is a normed linear space over either R or C again. Is it okay? Functional is actually a function having, you can say, three properties. First is it should be scalar value. Okay. Then it is continuous and then it is linear. Okay. Now by using the linearity property, one can replace this continuity by boundedness as well. So you can say either continuous linear map or you can say bounded linear map. One and the same thing it will be, right? Therefore, any continuous linear scalar valued map or a function is called as a function. Then if we collect all the functions or all the functionals in one set, then by looking at this continuous linear map, already we have seen the notation bxy, no? What is bxy? This is
Set of bounded linear operator.
very good. This is a set of all bounded linear map from x to y, no?
Yes, ma'am.
From x to y. Now the same we have here, continuous linear or bounded linear map, but defined from n to either R or C. Therefore, may I write it in the same definition? This will be bounded set of all bounded linear transformation from n to either R or C. Therefore, may I say this will be the collection of all functionals? Correct now? This is the collection of all functionals we have, and as these are the collection of all functionals defined on the normed linear space N, we were going to denote with a new symbol called as n star. Therefore, n star is the collection of all bounded linear transformations or collection of all functionals simply. Is that okay? Okay, if I want to consider the nature of elements in the set, then this n consists of vectors because this is the non-linear space. Actually, this is underlined to be a vector space or a linear space. That of the nature of element in this n star will be functionals. Okay, now what can be said about this n star? Whether it itself will be a non-linear space or not. Okay, whether itself will be a normed linear space or not, that one has to think of, right? Previously we have seen the definition of an operator norm, correct? What is the definition of an operator norm?
Supremum of norm of T of x such that x belongs to x and norm of x less or equal to 1.
Here I will write n because the underlying non-linear space is 1. Okay, then there are four more definitions we have, equivalent definitions. We have proved the equivalence of the definitions as well, right? Then, can we use this definition of operator norm to find out the norm of a functional? Right? Then what will be a norm of a functional? You can say this is supremum. Yes? Norm of f of x. But this is actually a function we have defined. This is actually t is a function defined from n to n dash, where the norm defined, where both are the non-linear spaces. But here, f we were defining from n to either r or c, where the norm defined on n is say norm. What is the norm defined on r or c? This is modulus. Correct? No? Therefore, how can I replace this? Mod of f of x in n such that norm of x is less than or equals to 1. Therefore, with this, one can say n star is a normed linear space. N star is the normed linear space. Next, we will move to a question whether n star will be a Banach space. N star will be a Banach space. Again, if you remember, we have proved one theorem. Okay, what is the theorem? If y is complete, what is the nature of b of xy?
Banach space.
Yes, or complete I will write. Or b of xy is Banach space. Okay. Therefore, with this, look at this codomain n star. This is a set of all functional from n to either R or C. What is the nature of R or C? Is
Complete.
it complete? Yes, it is complete. Therefore, with this and by using this theorem, may I say n star is also complete?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
N star is complete with this norm. It is a non-linear space as well. Therefore, combining both, may I say n star is a Banach space where the norm defined is an operator norm. Where the norm defined is nothing but the operator norm. Okay, check out. If you have any difficulty, you can ask me. Okay, therefore I'll just write as R oblique C is complete. Okay, therefore may I get? We get n star is a Banach space. N star is a Banach space. Here I will write n star is a normed linear space under this operator norm definition. Is that okay? Okay. Now whatever this n star we were writing, which is the collection of all functionals defined on n, okay, this is called as conjugate space. This is called as conjugate space or dual space or adjoint space. Of n. Is that okay? N star is called as conjugate space, dual space or adjoint space of which set? Of the set n. Because in this n star we were collecting all the functionals defined on n. Is that okay? Therefore this conjugate space itself is a Banach space. Actually we were interested in all Banach spaces because we were studying Banach spaces in this topic, right? No. Therefore n star, which is a collection of all functionals, is a Banach space and we were going to call it as either conjugate space or dual space or adjoint space. Okay. Now, if I consider n star itself is a non-linear space and if I collect all functionals, say functional g I will write, which is n star from defined on n star to either R or C. Okay, where it is satisfying both the condition, continuous and linear. Then can I say this will be a collection of all functionals defined on n star? Correct, no? This will be the functionals defined on n star and we were going to call this as second conjugate space and we were going to denote it by n double star. So this is called as second conjugate space. Second conjugate space of n or conjugate space of n star. Is that okay?
Yes,
n
ma'am.
double star is collection of all functionals defined on n star. Therefore, this will be conjugate space of n star or second conjugate space of the non-linear space here. Is it okay? Therefore, again with the similar structure we have discussed, may I say this is also a Banach space. This is also a Banach space. Therefore, conjugate space and second conjugate space both are the Banach spaces. Now we were going to discuss the properties regarding functionals. Okay. Now the pair of mathematician Hahn and Banach have proved that there are lot of functionals defined on the given linear space. Or if we know one functional defined on the given linear space, one can define many or one can construct many linear spaces. To prove this, they have defined first one, they have proved one lemma. In this lemma, we were going to have existence of one functional which will be the extension of original functional defined on the given linear space. Okay. Let me write the heading of this theorem as Hahn-Banach lemma. Let me just tell you the full names of both the mathematicians. Somewhere I have written this as Hans Hahn, H-A-N-S, Hans Hahn, and Stephen Banach. Okay, this whatever the theorem they have derived called as an Hahn-Banach theorem, it actually provides the rich supply of continuous linear functionals on a non-empty norm linear space, right? To show this theorem, first we will prove this lemma. Let me write the statement so that the idea will be clear. The statement says that let M be a linear subspace of a non-linear space N, and F be a linear functional. Sometimes it was written linear functional, but to write a word linear or not is not important, because functional itself means it is continuous and linear. Na? But in some books they have used the word linear functionals. Therefore we can write simply functional also. F be a functional defined on M. Okay. Let x naught be an element not in M if M naught is the linear space spanned by M and x naught, then prove that F can be extended to a functional F naught on M naught such that norm of F naught is equal to norm of M. We'll try to understand the statement first. Okay. As I am discussing that this is totally related with the functional, the theorem tells that if we have a linear subspace of a given non-linear space, say N. Okay. Let me show you. This is my original subspace, say N, and this be a linear subspace. Okay. Now what is the thing given to us? Small f be a linear functional defined on the space M. X not be an element not in M. Not in M means it is in N. X naught is in N, not in M. Then what one has to do? One has to construct a linear subspace M naught, which is spanned by M and X naught. Okay, which is spanned by M and X naught means what? In the basis, we have to add one more element X naught. In which basis? In the basis of capital M. And whatever the space will be formed is called as M naught C. Is that okay to everyone? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Whatever is the basis of M we have to add an element X naught in that. Okay. And whatever the new space formed is called as the space M naught. Okay. Then we wanted to prove that this whatever the functional defined on M, it can be extended to a functional F naught defined on M naught such that norm values of both the functions is equal. Okay, try to understand what the theorem wanted to tell us. If we have one functional on a subspace M, then actually here can I write M is a subspace of M naught as well, and M naught is a subspace of N, correct? No. Whatever the functional we have on M, it can be defined on the space M naught. This we wanted to show. Okay. And what is the job in this theorem? Define one function F naught on M naught and prove it as a functional. How can I prove it as a functional? Functional means how many conditions to be verified? Continuous and linearity, or boundedness and linearity. And one more thing we have to prove, that this is an extension function of f. Okay, earlier we have seen extension and restriction function, no? Somewhere we have
Yes, ma'am.
discussed, correct now? What is the meaning of extension? Suppose this is a and this is b. F is a function defined on a. If I wanted to extend this function to g on defined on b, then what should be a relation between f and g? F and g must be equal on a. Correct now? F of x is equal to g of x for all x in a. Correct now? Or I can write f is equals to g on a. In this case, g is called as an extension of f, or f is called as a restriction of g. Similarly, in this case, if I wanted to show f naught is an extension of f, then what one has to show? F naught is equals to f defined on m. Correct now? Correct now? Extension function if I wanted to show. This I wanted to show. Okay. Once we prove this theorem, then a question arises, can we extend the same function to the whole norm linear space? This is the question. As we have extended a functional f to f naught defined on m naught, can we extend it to n? And this is what we were going to check in the main theorem of Hahn-Banach. In the lemma, we were going to prove only for this subspace m naught. Is the statement understood?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. If the statement is understood, then we were going to prove it. The proof is divided into two cases. Okay. Why it is in two cases? Because whenever a functional is defined, on, suppose m naught I am defined on m naught, then what should be my codomain? Either R or C. Correct now? Either R or C. Therefore, the two cases we were going to prove separately, one for real field, one for complexes field. Okay. The proof is little bit lengthy, but not difficult. What we have to prove all is all the properties of the functionals. Okay. Therefore, first job we will do is we will try to understand the nature of elements in m naught. Then we will define a function, a simple map on m naught, and we will prove it as a functional extension and where the norm values are same. Means 4 steps to be proved, right? Correct now? In order to prove f naught to be a functional, first we will prove f naught is linear. Then we will prove either continuous or bounded. Then we will prove that this f naught is an extension of f. And in the fourth step, we will prove norm f naught is equals to norm of f. 4 steps in both the cases. In case 1, considering the real field. Case 2, considering the complex field as a codomain of the given functions. Is it okay?
Yes,
Is
ma'am.
the idea understood for the proof? If the idea is understood, I can start with the proof itself. Is that okay? Let me repeat again. Theorem is somewhat lengthy but not difficult. Once you understand this to be stepwise, there is no difficulty in the proof. Okay? Now, let me start the proof. What I told you, first job is to understand the nature of elements in m naught. Okay? Now, what is given that? M naught is the space spanned by, m naught is the linear space spanned by m and x naught. Therefore, what will be a structure of elements in m naught? What will be a structure of elements in m actually? Linear combination of the corresponding basis vector. Now, we wanted to write the space spanned by m and x naught. Therefore, the element of capital M, I will take a small m, say. Okay. And here it is x naught. And we want the linear combination of these two elements right now. Correct now? M itself, this small m elements itself will be a linear combination of elements of basis of the space M. But we were not discussing about what is the basis of M and then writing the linear combination. Here we will take an arbitrary element small m of capital M, and we will take the linear combination of m and x naught, so that it will be an element of m naught itself. Is that okay? So can I write here directly m plus alpha x naught, where m is an element of capital M and alpha b as element of the scalar here. Whatever the scalar we will choose, either R or C. Okay? Therefore, if I select any arbitrary element, say W of M naught, then what will be a nature? Is it M plus alpha x naught? Or some M in M and alpha in K. Okay? Now here what I will do? I will prove both the cases simultaneously here. We prove the lemma for real and complex field separately. We prove the lemma for real and complex scalars separately. Okay, let me start the case on new page. I will write here it as case 1. What field I am going to select? K equals to RC. Okay, K equals to R. That is, the underlined codomain is the real field. Okay, therefore here can I write that is N is a real nonlinear space. The scalars used in this in the space N are the real numbers. Also, the functional will be a real valued function. Is that okay? Now it's a time to define the new function f naught. Define f naught. On which space? M naught to R by. Now, while defining this, we will take care that the resultant element must be an element of R itself. Okay. What is the nature of element in the field? In the space M naught, not field. F naught, if I say some W, okay, we know this is M plus alpha x naught. M plus alpha x naught. Whatever the resultant definition we were writing, it should be a real value. It should be a real value. What about alpha here selected? Is it real? Real, no. Alpha, over here I will write, here alpha is in R, correct? No. Therefore, in order to prove that f naught is linear, we will try to involve a function f somewhere while defining f naught. Okay, so that we can show this f naught is linear. Also, we can show this will be an extension of f. This will be an extension of. Therefore, see how I am going to define this. I will write this as f of m plus alpha into r naught, where r naught is an element of R. Alpha is also an element of R. Check out. While defining f naught, I have used f. Similarly, if I check the right hand side, what is the nature? F is a real valued functional. So this value is real value. Alpha is real value. And similarly, R naught is also a real value. For combining, may I say, this will be a real value, whatever we have defined. Similarly, as of we wanted to show that this f naught is an extension of f, that is f naught is equal to f for the elements of m. If I wanted to make sure the element is in m, what should be my value of alpha? We have to take alpha 0, na?
0.
So that this element m plus alpha x naught will go in m. Okay. What is the value for alpha equal to 0 on the right side? Check. What will be the value if we take alpha equal to 0 on both the sides? What is my left hand side? Left hand side will be f naught of m. And what will be right hand side? F of m. What we have proved? F naught is equal to f for all m in m. Therefore, while defining the function itself, we have taken care that this will be a extension of f. This will be a extension of f. Is that okay? Is that okay? Now let us go
Yes,
for all proving all the 4 steps one by one simultaneously. Therefore, here I will write step number 1. What will be my step number 1? To prove that f naught is linear. Is it okay? Then we will go for continuity or boundedness, then extension, and then proving both the functional normally both the functions are equal. Okay. Now, if I wanted to show f naught is linear, what should I do? I should consider 2 elements of the domain. Therefore, let me write say w1 and w2 be the 2 elements of the domain m naught. Then what is the nature of element w1? Shall I write that sum be m1 plus alpha 1 x naught and w2 be say m2 plus alpha 2 x naught. Okay. What about this m1 and m2? Elements of which set?
M.
Yes. M1, M2 is in M and alpha 2 are the real scalars used. Okay. Now let me consider the statement for proving the linearity of f naught. So first shall I consider the linear combination of w1 and w2? Let me write w1 plus beta w2 say a linear combination. Okay. Then, okay, what is w1 selected? This is m1 plus alpha 1 x naught. Okay, beta times m2 plus alpha 2 x naught. Okay, check out the definition, how it is being defined. F naught of m plus alpha x naught. First, it was defined on m as f of m. Okay, then alpha taken as it is, and then element x naught is mapped to r naught. X naught is some element of the given nonlinear space n which is mapped to any real number r naught. Okay, understood the definition? F naught defined on m as f of m plus alpha taken as it is, x naught mapped to r naught. Okay, let us follow the same definition. For this, what I have to do? I have to collect the elements of m together, then scalar together, and then x naught in one bracket. So let me do it for the sake of convenience. Let me collect the elements of m together. Therefore, may I write this is m1 plus beta m2 in one bracket as an element of capital M. Is it okay?
Yes,
Why
ma'am.
this is an element of m? Because m1, m2 are the elements of m. Therefore, the scalar combination is also an element of m. Okay, then what should be my next step? Taking x naught common, I will write the remaining scalars. Here the first scalar is alpha 1. What is the next scalar? Beta.
Beta alpha 2.
Yes. What about this? Is it the real scalar?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now let us map f naught. How the mapping f naught is defined? F naught is defined on f for the elements of m. Therefore, can I write this as f of m1 plus beta m2? Then a scalar is taken as it is, no? You may check. This alpha scalar is taken as it is. X naught is mapped to R naught. Therefore, let me take the scalar as it is. Alpha 1 plus beta alpha 2 into R naught. I can write this x naught here so that you will not get confused into x naught. Then x naught is mapped to R naught. Is it okay?
Yes, ma'am.
The reason is by definition of f naught. You see, definition itself is defined so that we can prove the results, remaining results. Okay. Now, what we know about f? It's a functional, no? If it is
Yes,
linear
ma'am.
itself, and what is the job? Just to separate w1 and w2. Correct? Therefore, can I write this as f of m1 plus beta times f of m2? Then let me multiply by r naught. This is alpha 1 r naught plus beta times alpha 2 r naught. Reason f is linear because it is functional, no? Now let us take the elements with suffix 1 together. Therefore, can I write this as f of m1 plus alpha 1 r naught in one bracket? Then taking beta common from these, I will write a bracketed term as f of m2 plus alpha 2 r naught. Look at this structure. May I say this is f naught image of? Yes?
W1.
m1 plus alpha 1 r naught. The pre-image will be x naught. Correct now? Beta times. This is f naught image of m2 plus alpha 2 x naught. Is it okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Therefore, this is nothing but W1 plus beta times F naught of W2. Thus, what we have proved F naught is here. Okay. Simple now. If you understand the definition of F naught, it will not be a trouble. Okay. Now let us go for step number 2. Before proving the boundedness or continuity, I will prove first it is an extension. Therefore, in step 2, we will prove that F naught is an extension of F. Okay. What to prove actually then? To prove F naught is an extension. This is what I aim to prove. F naught of M is F of M for all M in M. Correct? Therefore, what should I do? I will start with an arbitrary element, say M in M. And what should I consider? F naught of M. Okay, but F naught is actually defined on the element of this type. F naught of M plus alpha x naught. M plus alpha x naught. Therefore, what should be, I try to write my M in this format. M plus, is it 0x naught? The
Yes,
scalar
ma'am.
I will select 0. Therefore, here I can write this as F naught of M plus 0 times x naught. Now, how this F naught is mapped? F naught is mapped on f of m added with scalar taken as it is. X naught is mapped to r naught. By definition of f naught. Okay. Then 0 f of m plus 0 into r naught is nothing but f of m. If what we have proved, f naught of m is equal to f of m for all m in capital M, which means that f naught is nothing but f for the elements of capital M. Therefore, F naught is an extension of small f. Okay. Now we will prove the third step of either boundedness or linearity. But what we have observed is while proving boundedness, actually we wanted to prove in this, but while proving this fourth step of norm f naught is equal to norm f itself, boundedness will be verified. Why this is so? Let me tell you. Okay. Actually, while proving norm f naught is equals to norm f, we wanted to prove two inequalities, now going in opposite direction. That is, first is norm f naught less than or equals to norm of f, and norm f naught is greater than or equals to norm of. These two one has to show, so that an equality will be established. But if I prove this inequality, norm f naught is less than or equals to norm f, may I say as f is bounded, f naught will be bounded itself?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Therefore, we were not proving the boundedness condition separately. We will go directly to prove this step, so that while proving this, we can automatically conclude that f naught is bounded. Therefore, here we were skipping the third step of proving boundedness or continuity separately. We will go for proving directly norm of f naught is equals to norm of f. Okay. Let us start. Okay, let us start by using the definition of operator norm in both the cases. So first I will write norm of f naught. Okay, let us make sure which functional is extension. You should not forget. Okay. This is original space, this is m naught, and somewhere this is m. Okay, on f we have defined f. On f naught, m naught we are defining f naught, which is an extension. This is the idea. Okay. Now I wanted to define norm F naught and I wanted to relate it with norm F. I want to have a relation with norm F. See how I am going to have a relation. How I am going to define this by using an operator now. This is supremum.
Mod of
Yes.
F naught of X.
Mod of F naught. See why we were using mod? Because the codomain is either R or C and the norm defined in the real or complex spaces is modulus. Because we were taking mod. Okay. Such that X is in M naught and norm of X is less than or equals to 1. Okay. Now as I have told you that we want to relate it with F, what I will do, I try to change the underlined space M naught to M. As we know, M is a subspace of M naught. What will be the relation between the suprema values if I change the underlined set to its subset? What will be the effect on this equality? That is what the question is. Underlined set आपण छोटा करतोय. What will be a relation between the supremas of this function?
Greater.
Yes, it is greater equal. Correct ना? Okay. समजता ना सगळ्यांना? Underlined
Yes,
set
ma'am.
if I am making small, then suprema of bigger set will be greater equal by suprema of the smaller one. Okay. So this will be greater equal. Now, what about mod of F naught? For the elements of F, M, may I say F naught is nothing but M? F. So can I replace it by F? What is the reason? F naught is an extension of F, or you can write F naught is equals to F on M. Correct, no? Here also one can write F naught is equal to F on M. Correct, now? Now here the underlying set is M, therefore I can replace F naught by F. Now look at this right hand side definition. What we have obtained the right hand side? Supremum mod f of x, x is in M such that norm x less than or equals to 1. Therefore, may I say this is norm of F? One inequality we have proved while proving this equality, correct? Norm f naught is greater or equal by norm of F. Now what remains to show? Yes, students, am I audible clearly?
Norm F naught less equal by norm F.
Wait. Now it remains to prove that norm F naught is less equal by norm of F. And with this, it will be automatically proved that F naught is bounded because we know F is bounded already. Now, to prove this reverse part, we were going to make use of some different criteria. Okay, for this, what we were going to do is, we were going to start with some two elements, arbitrary elements of the set M, say, any two vectors. Be any two vectors, and I'm going to consider the structure of the type f of x2 minus f of x1. Okay, may I write it as equal to f of x2 minus x1? Reason?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, is linear. Okay, now if I wanted to consider the modulus, what will be a relation here? What will be a relation here? F and its modulus. Is it less equal?
Less equal.
Yes, but we know f is bounded. Therefore, can I write this as norm of f into norm of x2 minus x1? Reason f
Yes, ma'am.
is bounded. Reason is f is bounded. Now, anyhow, we wanted to go from the space m to m naught and from the function f to f naught. And we know if I wanted to go from the space m to m naught, which element should be involved? X naught should be
X naught.
involved. Therefore, here we will involve x naught on the right hand side by making an adjustment of adding and subtracting x naught. Is it okay? This we have done. Okay. Now let us separate this over the two elements. Okay. On the next page I will write fx2 minus fx1 is less than or equals to. Yes. Can I separate it over by using the triangular inequality?
Yes, ma'am.
Norm of x2 plus x0 added with. Can I observe the negative by taking it out with the modulus? And I can write
Yes,
x1
ma'am.
plus x0. Okay. Now let us separate the elements of x1 on one side, x2 on another side. Let me keep x1 on the left side. Therefore, this is minus fx1. Element corresponding to x1 is going to shift on the left. Therefore, multiply by norm f and shift to the left. Therefore, is it norm f into norm of x1 plus x0 and it is less equal by what? This fx2 we will shift on the right. This is fx minus fx2 added with norm f into norm of x2 plus x0. Now, in order to have the relation, instead of this special elements x1 and x2, we want this for an arbitrary element of m instead of x1 and x2 separately. So, what we were going to do is see as x1 x2 are the arbitrary elements. What I will do initially I will keep x2 fixed. Initially, I will try to keep x2 fixed and let us vary x1 elements over m. Let us vary x1 over m. Though we vary x1 over m, may I say every term with respect to every element of this m, this left hand side is less equal by this fixed right hand side. Okay. Suppose I'm changing x1, x2, x3, x4, x5 on the left hand side. But each and every term is less equal by this right hand side. No. Therefore, may I say, if I construct a set on the right side, which will be bounded above by this fixed term, x2 minus fx2 and all. See what I'm trying to say is, suppose I have a set m of elements say 1 to 10. Okay. And for any two elements, say A and B, we have this relation where A and B both are in M. Where A and B both are in M. Okay. Now what I will do, I'll fix B and I'll just vary A. How many A's it will be? A1, A2 to A10. Okay. For A1 less equal by B, A2 less equal by B. Correct now? Or I can write directly 1 less equal by B, 2 less equal by B, 3 less equal by B. Okay. Similarly, 10 less than or equals to B. Therefore, may I say B works as the upper bound of the set? B works as the upper bound of the set. Therefore, may I say B is an upper bound of capital M. B works as an upper bound of M. Okay. If B works as an upper bound of M, then what is the relation between suprema of M and this B?
Less equal.
Yes, it is less equal because suprema is nothing but least upper bound of M, and no doubt least upper bound is less equal by arbitrary upper bound. Therefore, here if we keep x2 fixed and vary x1, therefore may I write for an arbitrary element supremum of the left hand side is less equal by the same. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Now let us do the same thing reverse. Now one has to keep x1 fixed and vary x2. Again, m I am going to take a less than or equals to b is the relation defined on the set m. Take same set. Now I am going to, which element I wanted to fix? A I wanted to fix. And let us vary b. Therefore, may I write a less equal by 1, a less equal by 2, a less equal by 10. Therefore, what about A? Is it the lower bound?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And what is the relation between lower bound and infima of M? Infima is greatest lower bound. Therefore, the relation will be
Less equal.
less equal. Relation will be less equal. Therefore, combining both, may I say, supremum of the set on the right side for any arbitrary y in M is less equal by infima of the same set for arbitrary y equals to. Because we are very varied now. Correct? Are you getting me?
Yes, ma'am.
I have tried to explain, but I don't know. Okay, here what I will write. Since this inequality is true for arbitrary x1, x2 in M, we see that. That is with this inequality, or with this inequality A less than or equals to B, what we were going to observe is supremum of M is less equal by infimum of M. With this inequality, okay? Once I have to vary, and once I have to vary x1, once I have to vary x2. Okay, therefore here I can write supremum of the left hand side y in M such that minus fy minus norm of f norm of y plus x naught, this is less equal by infimum of y in M of y plus norm of f into norm of y plus x naught. Okay, that is with this inequality we were claiming that supremum of the left hand side is always less equal by infimum of the right hand side. याचा जर इन्फिमा घेतला तर तो याच्या लेफ्ट हँड साइडच्या सुप्रिमापेक्षा ऑलवेज लेस इक्वल आहे. दिस इज व्हॉट वी वर क्लेमिंग. ओके, now between these two, actually the terms in the set are the real values. Therefore this is one real value, this is also one real value. Therefore this is set is these are the sets of real values. Okay, therefore between these two one can easily find out one real value, say r naught. I'm writing choose r naught be any real number. Whether this real number exists between two real numbers, can you find one real number? Yes, students. Between any two
Yes,
real
ma'am.
numbers, can you find a real number? Yes, of course we can find it. This is what r naught I'm writing. Therefore, this is what a set we have obtained. Okay. Now, if the relation is true, r naught is a number between any this suprema of f and infima of f. We know arbitrary element of this set. If I consider capital A to be arbitrary element of this set, arbitrary element is less equal by suprema, and the arbitrary element is greater equal by the infima. Therefore, I will just remove suprema and infima words. And what I will write for an arbitrary element minus fy norm of x norm of y plus x naught is less equal by r naught less equal by minus fy plus norm of x norm of y plus x naught. Okay, let me call this as statement number 2. Okay, and this is for all y in M, no doubt. Okay, now what I'm going to do, y plus x naught, this element I wanted to convert to be an element of M naught. But we know the structure of element in M naught is defined as M plus alpha x naught. Correct now? Therefore, what I'm going to do, I'm going to put y at some x by alpha type. This y, I will keep some x by alpha type. But what kind of structure I will get? X by alpha plus x naught. Therefore, if I cross multiply by alpha, what kind of element I will get? X plus alpha x naught. Correct now? So that will be the nature of element in M. And therefore, here I will write put y equal to x by alpha in 2. Is it okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Or I am going to write minus f of x by alpha. I will write this inequality and I will stop. We will remaining. We will continue in the next lecture because it will take at least 15 to 20 minutes to complete this. Plus x naught less than or equals to r naught less than or equals to minus f of x by alpha plus norm of f into norm of x by alpha plus x naught and call this as number 3. Okay. Now in the next lecture we will see from this inequality how we are going to get the required. Actually, if we take a cross multiplication here, it will be involved with an element of m naught. Okay. And by using that we can construct the function f naught also. Actually here one has to discuss the three cases for alpha greater than 0, alpha equal to 0, alpha less than 0. If it is not possible to cover in today's lecture, so we will stop here. We will continue this theorem in the next lecture. If you have any difficulty up to this, you can ask me. Otherwise, we will stop. Yes? Any difficulty if you have, you can ask. It seems there are no difficulties. Let me stop here. Thank you for being with me with this lecture.